Hello everyone, welcome back to CodeSkwela, and we are on another status update for our application, which is to build a Blazor Postman clone. So uh, from my previous update, I failed to go or to walk you through the code that I've uh, used for this one, for the feature that I've discussed last time. And so we are just going to go through the code that I've used for this one. So specifically, the one where we can specify query parameters in our URL. Okay, as you have noticed here that I've already run the application. So we have three parameters here, and then it's also listed down here in our query parameters table. Okay, so every time you add a parameter, for example, like that, and then you hit enter, then it should get added in our query params table at the bottom. Okay, so let's go through first on the code that I've used to set all of this up. Okay, let's head to our code. So uh, first off is I need a way to parse this URL into each individual query parameters. And so what I did with this one is first I created a very simple unit test. So for that one, looking at the Solution Explorer, I've added a new unit test project. So this one is using XUnit. And if you look at the set of tests that I've created here, there's only two tests for this one. So the first one would be, so let's zoom in a bit. So the first one would be the parse method that must get the parameters part. So uh, what we're testing here is that making sure that we are getting the parameter section of the URL. So in this case, if you have this sample URL, what we need to get from our parser is just this section. Okay, so we have initially looking for this kind of results. So now we have our parameters parser. So this one, our parser class, is located here under our shared folder. So this is the shared folder, and then URL parameters parser. Okay, so with this one you have your parse parameters method. So it would accept a URL, and from there it's as simple as getting a index of uh, this symbol, the question mark, which indicates that it's the start of our query string, and from there we just need to grab all of the string after that up to the end of the string. So after we did that, then we just return the result. So coming up from that method here, we call that one, and then we just want to make sure that it would match the one that we're expecting. So if we are passing in this URL, then we are expecting that the resulting parse from that would be this query string only. Okay, and then the second one would be uh, to parse the query string or the URL into a list of query parameters. So in this case, it's a list of key value pairs. So we are trying to map the individual parameters into its key value equivalent. Okay, so in this case, uh, the method parse parameters to list is what we are trying to test out here. So again, looking at the method, it's very simple again. So we parse first, we parse the URL. So we grab only the query string part, and from there we split that query string. So in a query string, it is split or separated by the and or ampersand symbol, and from there we can split again each of the individual key value pair into its key and value components. So, okay, and from there we'll just add it to our results of a list of key value pairs. Okay, so those are the two tests that I've added here just to make sure that our parser can correctly parse a URL with its query strings into parameters. Okay, so going back now to use that one in relation to our application here. So now what we need to do is use that parser to break down this URL into individual parameters. Okay, So with that one, so looking at the text box here, so as you can see, the text field here, which is this one, is this component. So we have used a mod text field, and then from there, we've uh, subscribed to the value changed event of this component, and then we're passing in the parse parameters method. Okay, so from there, we will every time the value changes here. So one way of triggering that one is when you press enter on the keyboard, and then it would trigger the value change event, and then in return would call the parse parameters method, which now would be our chance to parse our URL into each individual parameters, which is stored in this field here. So the underscore parameters. Okay. And then from there, all we need to do is just display that parameters. Okay. So with this section here, the query params, it's on a separate component, which is uh, located under the shared components shared folder, and then in there we have a new component which is named query params component. This now contains all of the logic for this table. Okay, so it handles the adding and then the removing of the individual parameters. Okay, so going back, so once you make any changes to this, the value change would be captured by our query params component here, which in return displays the individual parameters, okay, coming off from our section here. Okay, so the component only needs to receive the parameters or the list of query parameters as a parameter for this component. As you can see, going back here, we've mapped our query params component passing in the parameters, okay, and from there it gets displayed by the component. Okay, so another thing would be so anytime you add or remove parameters here, it would also get synced up with our query params component. Okay, so if we remove this one and hit enter, then as you can see, that last parameter has been removed. Okay, so another thing is that doing the syncing from this query params table component back to the URL. So how did we do that? So as you can see, our query params component has another attribute. It receives the on param added to add. So when you add another param here, let's say 4, and then value of 4, and then click on this check button here, as you can see, it would sync up to the URL, which is being mapped to our on param added event here. So once we click on the add param button, so this add param button is mapped to the on click attribute, which calls the add param method, which in turn, once all the key and value is present after the validation, that it would just create a new key value pair from that, and then send it back to the caller, okay, or to the one that is listening uh, to this event, which is our homepage, okay, which is mapped to this add parameter method. Okay, going again, so that this method receives the parameter that has been added, and then simply we just add it to our parameters field. Okay, and then after that, we need to call this update query string to update our URL in our URL text box. Okay, same thing goes for when removing a parameter. Okay, so when removing a parameter, we have this on param deleted event callback as a input parameter. So from there, once we click on the delete button, it would call the delete param method, which in turn would remove sorry, would remove that parameter and then pass that parameter back to the one that's it's being hooked to. Okay, in this case, looking at here, so on param deleted would just call the update query string. Okay, in this case, we don't need to do anything with the passed in uh, parameter. So we won't be doing any processing of that. So all we need to do is just update our URL again. So that becomes how the way of syncing the query params from this component back to the uh, URL text box. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so I think what's missing here is that if you, let's say, if you change the key, okay, let's say you modify the key and then the value, and then hit enter, nothing would happen. Okay, even with the key, press enter, so nothing would happen, which is because we have not mapped it yet. So this one I've missed, but I will be adding this feature so that it becomes more seamless and an convenient feature for us. So whenever we want to do any changes from this params table, then it should also sync up to our URL text box. All right. So I think that's what I only want to discuss for this one, showing you the uh, code that I've come up with in trying to implement this feature. Okay, so in my next update, I will add the one wherein any changes on the query params table would also need to sync up on our URL text. Okay, so but that comes in our next episode. So yeah, I think that's uh, mostly what I want to discuss for this one. And yeah, if you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or whatever thoughts that you have in mind, please let me know in the comment section. And yeah, I will gladly attend to it if you have anything else to ask about. But aside from that, let's wrap this up. And yeah, I hope to see you soon again in our next episode. And have a wonderful day. Thank you, everyone. Bye.